Thanks. All right. Welcome, everybody, to our Future Proof Your Retirement free monthly webinar, where we're going to be going over some critical details on midlife planning for late life success. While you will meet us all during the presentation, I did just want to make a quick introduction to the Future Proof team. So we consist of Alicia Mack, our Senior Living Advisor with Oasis Senior Advisors. We also have Joy McMurchie, who's a certified financial educator. And my name is Jackie Walter. I'm a health and Medicare insurance broker with Translating Insurance. And today, our guest speaker is Bill Cohen with Cohen Caregiving Support Consultants. Our purpose when we created this resource group is to focus on educating people so they're prepared for a successful and crisis-proof retirement and late life. While you just met the founders, every month we have guest speakers that are adding value to our free webinar, including speakers on estate planning, forever home planning, supplemental insurances, and tax planning. Our vision is to bring up those questions that you wouldn't think to ask so we can help you prepare before it's too late. It's always better to have a plan before you're in crisis mode. Our first presenter today is the lovely Joy McMurchie.
Thanks so much, Jackie. Today, I really want to talk about what it takes to finish strong when it comes to successfully navigating your retirement. So next, when you imagine yourself entering retirement, what vehicle do you see yourself sort of driving off into the sunset in? Next, for most people, their car might look a little something like this. 62% of seniors rely on Social Security retirement income as their primary source of income. And the average income for Social Security is only about $1,600 a month. So they aren't really going anywhere fast. Next, but maybe you have a 401k or got into some of the more exciting areas of the stock market or one of the cryptocurrencies, and your car looks more like this, sort of sporty and up to date. Would you take that car on anything other than a perfectly paved road, though? Probably not. What if life throws you some obstacles, the stock market drops, or you have a health crisis? Next, in those situations, you want an income and a plan that will take you through anything. It might not be as stylish as the sports car, but it has the longevity and flexibility to get you where you want to go. Next, when talking to a financial professional, it can sometimes feel like you jump into the data and products without taking the time to discover not just what you need, but why you need it. The why, however, is going to be the foundation upon which your entire plan is built. So I really encourage you to find someone who takes the time to get to know who you are as a person, what's important to you, and talks through some of these questions before they even jump into crunching numbers. Next, these are the 7 money milestones that my firm uses to walk clients through having a comprehensive plan. Each step is important, and it's so important to not skip over number 1, financial education, taking the time to learn enough so that you can navigate it and have good conversations with the people who are helping you. And each step is essential. You will not be able to get where you want to go without taking care of each and every one of these. Next, but let's talk a little bit more in detail about what makes a good plan. First off, comprehensive. Are you covered in all areas? Are there gaps you might not know about? Maybe you lack long-term care coverage, but several family members are likely to need it, or your parents needed it, and so you're more likely to need it. This was the case with some clients of mine. They had no idea that long-term care can cost over $12,000 a month. And they only had about 4 months of long-term care funding in their savings account when the husband had a stroke. Because of that, their options were very limited when he needed to go into a care facility after he left the hospital. Fortunately, he landed in a good place, but it really was a very challenging time for them to go through. Next off, cohesive. Do all the parts of your plan work together? A lot of people sort of collect a 401k here, some stock there, maybe a rental property, but how do all these parts work together to help you reach your goal can you have confidence that you will reach your goal with the pieces you have now, or do you need a few other things? Diversify today means much more than stocks and bonds. Instead, we're talking about different types of money. What happens if all of your money is in taxable accounts? What do you think taxes are going to go up or down in the future? Probably up. So many people don't realize that, say, PERS is entirely taxable, or 401ks or traditional IRAs. And that is people's entire retirement sometimes. So we want to see both taxable and non-taxable money, but you also should have a reliable income stream and sort of this bucket of money on the side for either bigger expenses like a new roof or taking a family trip. Next. Oh, sorry. Go one back. Most importantly, both partners need to know the plan. This is essential. You both don't have to be the money nerd, but I know a couple where the husband fell suddenly ill and the wife had never had to pay a bill or write a check in her life. Her husband just loved taking care of that for her. She had no idea what their income was, where to find their financial accounts. Do both people in your household know everything about your plan, or at least where and how to access important information? Next. Another important element is the timing of implementing your plan. As you can see, several things need to be put in place long before you will ever need them. Long-term care in particular needs to be addressed early, because by the time you're thinking you might need it, and with how long people remain healthy and active, this could be in their late 70s these days. Many of their options might not be available, since a lot of long-term care policies want you to qualify when you are in good health or before the age of 70. Really, probably about 55 to 60 is your ideal window for making that purchase. 65 is usually fine too. My grandmother purchased her long-term care policy in her mid-50s, and she didn't end up using it until she was 92. But she felt it was 100% worth it to have that extra income when she really needed that extra level of care. Next, let's talk briefly about estate planning. Over half of US adults do not have a will. We all think we still have tomorrow, but none of us are promised that. And we could be setting our families up for some serious challenges and heartache by not making a plan now. Don't avoid it. Next, there are 4 documents that most people need for an estate plan. And if you own anything when you die, you have an estate. It doesn't just mean a mansion down south. A will or a trust tells people what the plan is for your property and your things. The power of attorney and advance directive are both essential if you do not die. Got to have a plan for that too. Who will pay bills or make healthcare decisions for you if you cannot? The HIPAA release is just a companion document to the advance directive, so your medical team can discuss your care with your healthcare advocate. And don't forget to make a plan for Fluffy and Buffy as well. Next. Some people choose a will because it's much less expensive upfront. However, you should have a plan for setting aside money to get you through probate, and it can be several $1,000s, or your family needs to have a plan for being able to get through that process. Trusts, on the other hand, they tend to be more expensive upfront, but they give the family a lot more control and make passing of assets a lot more seamless. Next. The other part of estate planning has to do with preserving as much of your estate as possible for your family. On the federal side, the current threshold is higher than the average person usually needs to worry about at 12 million. But that number is going to be dropping in only a few years. However, for the state of Oregon, it's not hard to have an estate over that $1 million threshold with a house and a couple retirement accounts. Washington threshold is a little bit higher, but you also might end up paying a little bit bigger of a chunk too up there, since their maximum is 20%. California looks like a great deal with no estate taxes, but you might want to look at their income taxes before retiring there. Next, there are several benefits to working with me and my team. It's free to meet with us. We never charge for advice. We want top-level financial strategies to be accessible to the average person. You also get the benefit of a large team of specialists. We have experts in life insurance, retirement, investments, estate planning, and college planning on our team to help each family build their customized plan. And now I'll pass the baton on to you, Jackie.
Thank you, Joy. That's really valuable information there. And as a reminder, please jot down any questions that you have at the end. We will be having a Q&A session. So my name is Jackie Walter. I'm a health and Medicare insurance advisor with Translating Insurance. I understand that insurance can sometimes feel like a foreign language, and I want to help take the confusion out of health insurance solutions, both before and after retirement. We have access to so much valuable information on the internet these days, including insurance plan information, plan pricing, etc. But when you DIY your health insurance, you're not only forced to pour through 40 plus plan details and spend hours and hours of your time researching, you also have the uncertainty of wondering, did I find the right answers on the internet? Was the advice I got from my neighbor right? And then you start to second guess yourself, and eventually you're going to regret not reaching out to an expert in the field. An advisor can save you countless hours and help narrow down options in around 15 minutes. When people are approaching retirement, the most common questions are, what is Medicare? Do I have to enroll? What if I work past the age of 65? What if I retire before I'm eligible for Medicare? As a broker, I help people understand and navigate insurance solutions for free, so you don't have to DIY. A lot of people think that when they retire and go on Medicare, it's going to be free and everything will be covered. Unfortunately, this is simply not true. While Medicare is a federally funded health insurance program for people ages 65 and older, or those with a qualified disability, it is not free. That's right. Medicare has monthly premiums, as well as co-pays, deductibles, co-insurance, and there are quite a lot of things that original Medicare doesn't cover, like dental, vision, hearing, and naturopathic care. Medicare also does not cover long-term care. So it's really important that you take Joy's advice and come up with a long-term care solution when you're in your 50s or 60s, so you don't get priced out of that option later. We also have solutions for home care and respite care. So if you have that situation or you expect that, give me a call and I can help with some solutions for that. Another surprising fact is that original Medicare does not have a max out of pocket. That's right. You have unlimited financial exposure on original Medicare, which is why it's my job to help fill the gaps that Medicare leaves behind, so we can mitigate your financial risk and help protect your retirement savings. A lot of people confuse Medicare with Medicaid. They're two completely different things, but they do both help with your health insurance out-of-pocket costs. Medicaid is generally state-provided insurance that you qualify for based on income levels. So it's meant for low-income individuals who can't afford premiums, co-pays, and co-insurance. It is possible to have Medicare and Medicaid at the same time if you're a low-income senior. So in this case, there are additional benefits that Medicare provides. That's why it's a good idea to talk to a broker to make sure you're getting all the benefits that you're entitled to. If you don't enroll in Medicare when you're first eligible, you can face a late enrollment penalty, and that penalty follows you for the rest of your life. But there are exceptions if you have other creditable coverage. So what if you want to work past the age of 65? Do you have to enroll in Medicare when you're first eligible? Or can you delay enrolling in Medicare till you lose your group coverage? The answer to that is, it depends. If you work for a large employer with 20 or more employees, you can delay enrollment in Medicare and stay on your group plan. But if you leave that group, you need to keep records of the dates that you had creditable coverage past the age of 65. I have seen people hop around from job to job, or a business closes 5-10 years later when they're 75 and they go to retire, they can't get those records. So make sure you keep that information. That way, if you need to provide proof of coverage, you can provide that. And I have that form if you need it. So will Medicare be your primary coverage, or will the group be your primary? That also depends. If the employer has 20 or more employees, the group plan is your primary coverage. You may want to just sign up for the free Medicare Part A because that can be a free secondary insurance and help with your hospital charges. However, I do recommend in that case that you delay enrollment in Part B because that has a monthly premium and there's no sense in paying that premium if the group plan is going to be your primary. If you work for an employer with under 20 employees, you do need to enroll in Medicare Part A and B in your initial enrollment period because you're going to need to have creditable prescription drug coverage, and your group plan will not want to be primary in that case. So Medicare will be your primary coverage. So definitely reach out to a broker if you have questions on how to get that creditable coverage. If you're purchasing your health insurance privately, for example, through the marketplace or ACA exchange or directly from the carrier, and it's not a group plan, you definitely need to enroll in Medicare when you're first eligible. If you're receiving any advanced premium tax credits on your health insurance premiums, you're no longer eligible to receive those tax credits once you're eligible for Medicare. And you would have to pay back any tax credits that you got past the date of your Medicare entitlement. So it's really important to work with a broker on transitioning off those tax credit ACA plans and onto Medicare. If you have access to a retiree plan and are no longer an active employee, make sure the retiree plan is considered creditable coverage under Part B and Part D for Medicare. You're also going to want to confirm that the plan doesn't require you to add Part B, just so you don't get late enrollment penalties later. So a broker can help you compare those plans for free. Oftentimes, people also ask me about COBRA. COBRA is a continuation of your group plan, including the same deductibles, copays, and coinsurance upon losing your group or employee status. While this can make sense for people under 65 or those not eligible for Medicare, it does not work well with Medicare eligible beneficiaries. Medicare needs to be your primary coverage if you're entitled and eligible to enroll. COBRA will not pay as primary if Medicare should be paying as primary, which could leave you in a very bad position. Not to mention, COBRA can be very expensive, and there's generally less expensive supplemental options with Medicare. So just talk to a broker before you opt into COBRA. So if your spouse is not eligible for Medicare, let's say one of you wants to retire and the other spouse is going to be under 65, there are plans available that will cover pre-existing conditions and give you a max out of pocket. And we can compare those plans to the cost of COBRA to see which one of those makes more sense. Sometimes with the advanced premium tax credits, the Obamacare plans are cheaper. And sometimes if you don't qualify for those, COBRA makes more sense. So I know all of this can seem a bit overwhelming. So just reach out for a free consultation. It doesn't cost anything. There's no obligation. It's just free help. And also I want to remind you that the annual enrollment period is coming up. Medicare annual enrollment for 2023 plans runs October 15th to December 7th. So you can schedule a free consultation to compare plans after those dates. Individual and family open enrollment runs November 1st to January 15th. So please reach out if you know somebody who needs help with insurance. And now I am passing it on to Alicia.
Thanks, Jackie. Gosh, we've been doing these webinars for months now, and each time I still learn something from both of you, even though we've been collaborating for a long time. So it's really great to just glean something new each presentation. In this portion of today's presentation, I hope to leave you with what I like to call some thought bombs, some thought-provoking questions. Who here has experienced working with a guide service before? Maybe like on a vacation or a fishing trip, an excursion. Awesome. What do you think are the benefits of using a guide? I'll answer the question for you. They help you explore areas you might not think to look, right? They answer questions you might not have thought to ask. They bring you to all the best local places. They have experiences and stories to share. They have experience working with different people and different dynamics. They are knowledgeable in their craft, and they assist people to have a better overall experience. So what do you think might happen when people don't have a guide? Well, things can get a bit overwhelming, right? We're not sure what questions to ask. We're not really sure where to look. We can get frustrated really quickly by all the unknowns. We could be missing out on resources or options that we didn't know were available. The more difficult the path, the more beneficial it is to have a guide. How many people here have experienced some concerns about an elderly loved one living at home alone? Perhaps someone that you think could benefit from more support. Yeah. Were you met with concerns like, I don't need any help, or I'm not ready to move, or I don't want to be a burden, or maybe it's just too expensive? Denial of need is really common with aging older adults. If it's difficult to talk with them now, do you think it's going to get easier as their need for support grows? No. Yeah. But wait, what if you had a guide? Someone who could help you navigate this unfamiliar territory? That's me. Okay, next. So what happens if you're talking with a loved one and you're met with some resistance? What's the worst that could happen from not furthering the conversation? Well, a crisis. 60% of the clients that I help navigate senior care options are reaching out to us after a crisis has happened. There's been a fall, there's a change of condition, there's a stroke, a heart attack, something that lands their loved one in the hospital or rehab setting. Oftentimes these hospitals and rehabs, they give the family roughly 3 days to come up with a solution. They'll say, you can't go back home, you need 24-hour care, figure it out, you got till tomorrow. Finding a solution can be really challenging, especially during this overwhelming crisis. That's why the folks in our resource group here are so passionate about encouraging people just to prepare themselves before they find themselves in a crisis, in a situation like this. Can you go back a second? Thanks. If you're managing this learning curve during a crisis, it can be super overwhelming and stressful to navigate. Now, let me ask you this. What do you think is the best thing that could happen from continuing a conversation before a crisis? Well, we're getting some education on what to expect, like what services exist, what levels of support are out there, how much does it cost, and also how do you find the right resources that are reputable? Okay, now we can go next. Do you even know what kind of care options there are? It's not just a nursing home anymore, people. When I meet with new clients, the first thing we'll talk about are questions, lots of questions. Questions like, when is assisted living not enough care? How do I know if my loved one needs a nursing home? What's the difference between what's offered in an adult foster care setting and assisted living? How much does that cost? What is residential care and how is that different from memory care? What's a spend down? What's a PACE program? What happens if the only asset is the home? What's the difference between home health and home care? That's a big one. And what's the difference between Medicare and Medicaid, like Jackie touched on? What is covered by Medicare and Medicaid? You'd be surprised how many people really don't know this and are confused about these two. Okay, next. So Medicare is part of your health insurance plan, as Jackie was talking about. It covers things like your hospital stay, rehab, home health, which is actually therapy services. That's your outpatient therapy, like physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. It can also include things like wound care, where Medicaid is what people apply for when they run out of assets, when they've depleted their assets and there's need for long-term care or long-term care support. Medicaid can cover some of that support. Medicaid eligibility and reimbursement rates are determined by which county you live in. My role is to help answer potentially uncomfortable questions and help you to figure out which questions you should be asking as well as to help you to determine which priorities are going to be most important to you and your family with this search. Next. So approach matters. When adult children are perceived as trying to parent their parents, how do you think that goes? Not so well, right? I've met with several folks who are trying to have these conversations with their loved ones, but they're telling me they're met with a denial of needs or resistance, because talking about, leaving the senior's home is very emotional. And oftentimes they say that they feel like they're being forced to give up their independence. Many times it's just the right approach in navigating these conversations is all that was needed to further the discussion and the planning. Families don't know what to do when their approach isn't working, when the senior's not listening to reason, or, they say, I just want to die in my home and that's all I'm going to want to talk about. We're done talking about it. They get frustrated, they get fed up. They're like, I can't do it anymore, right? So this is where I come in. This is too common. I help people with, okay, if they're not going to want to talk with us about it, what other things can we do to help prepare you, right? Let's talk about getting you some education, coming up with a plan B. If plan A is to stay home as long as possible, then what does plan B look like? And when does plan B come into play, right? I think we're on to the next. Let me help be your guide and come up with a plan so that you're not navigating so much of this new information during a crisis. There are folks like myself and other speakers in our group here who can help families as a guide to navigate a plan, to further the discussion before a decision-making situation. Using the right approach is where I come in. I can help you with an approach that feels collaborative, doesn't leave the senior feeling like their children are telling them what they need to do. I can be your advocate, your emotional support, your cheerleader, your local guide, someone who knows the industry, knows the area, and wants to help empower you to make an informed decision about your loved one's care. If none of this resonates with you today personally, perhaps you may encounter a friend or a coworker who's going through this with their loved ones. This is a great time to introduce the resource of a senior living advisor, such as myself, who can help eliminate some of that overwhelming stress in this journey. Oasis Senior Advisors is licensed by the state to provide this service, which is completely free to all families. No obligations, no contracts. We help people with or without financial means to navigate resources and placement options. So let's not wait for a crisis to keep the conversation going. I'm your local knowledgeable guide. Thank you so much. Next, we have our guest speaker with us, Bill Cohen from Cohen Caregiving Support. He's going to talk with us about caring for the caregiver.
Thank you, Alicia. If you're thinking there's a theme of being guides, I think I'm going to be continuing that. We're all a bit of a guide here. So I am Bill Cohen, Certified Senior Advisor. My business is Cohen Caregiving Support, and I'm going to share a little story with you. Next, please. So if you had told me about 17, 18 years ago what was going to transpire with myself and my mother, Sheila, and that I'd be doing what I do today, I'd say, no way, couldn't make up this scenario. My mom was living in Biloxi, Mississippi. She was showing some signs of something that were very concerning. Disorientation, memory loss, not taking care of the house, not taking care of the finances. We knew something was wrong. She was actually in the caregiving role herself for my late stepfather. And we thought that, well, she's getting worn out. She's stressed, getting older. Maybe if he passes away, goes into a care community, we'll see she'll bounce back. We never got that opportunity. Because what happened in August 2005 on the Mississippi Gulf Coast in New Orleans? Yes, Hurricane Katrina. That storm swept away their house down to the foundation, and the trauma accelerated whatever was going on with her. We realized later on that it was Alzheimer's. She was on the East Coast with a couple other family members for a couple of years. I started attending a support group, getting counseling, doing cross-country travel, handling all her matters, long distance. And I moved her out here in 2008. She was in a care community in Raleigh Hills for about 5 years, 4 of which were memory care. Next, please. She passed away at the age of 83, nine and a half years ago. Now, after that, after she passed away, I kept going to that support group. I thought, well, I'll go for a little while and then I'll leave because I've done my thing. I've been a caregiver. Well, I became the facilitator. And then I became a fundraiser and I became an advocate for a cure and various other things. But as I approached retirement on a completely unrelated employment with the state of Oregon, I thought I was just going to do more volunteer work. I came across this concept of caregiving support consultant. I help families go through their journey, like mine, like Alicia alluded to. It's hard to find resources, hard to find support, know who to trust, and get good information. Get a good information. Next, please. So the support was very helpful to me. If it hadn't been a good experience, I might not be sitting here today. I lead 3 different groups, either virtually or in person, and people find that it's very helpful. Next, please. So here's some warning signs of Alzheimer's. I'm not going to go through all these. You'll be getting the slides will be available, but it's things like, yes, short-term memory loss, difficulty completing familiar tasks, can be like your checkbook, could be not doing recipes that they've done for many years. There's many signs to look for. Every person's a little bit different. Next, please. There are different kinds of caregiving types, and family is, as it mentions, is as you define it, and can include people beyond your immediate family. My family, right after the hurricane, were very collaborative, getting my mom back on her feet, so to speak. We are also tag team or sequential, took turns taking care of her. And then when she moved out here, although a little help from other family members from a distance, who was solitary. Then there were others like observed caregiving or uneasy, where they're not really helping and they give unsolicited advice. Can be a big problem. Can be very frustrating to the caregiver. Next, please. So what I learned while I was going through all that stress, I had a very difficult situation at work with a micromanager boss. I'm handling all of my stuff. My blood pressure was sky high. One of the things I did was get a massage on a regular basis. I realized this was not a luxury. This is a necessity. And to sum up, you can do a lot of these things, even during a pandemic. Take the time for yourself. But I still do a massage to this day. And I realized that self-care is not selfish, it is vital. Because too often caregivers will get burnt out, get sick, or worse. We don't want that to happen. You can ask some of these people down at the bottom for help. There's many ways to do that, to create some time off for yourself. You must have that. Next, please. Here's a few things you don't want to do. Again, you're going to get this slide, but like one of them is, will you ever win an argument with a person with dementia? Never. You will never win an argument. You don't want to be responding in anger or anxiety. You will want to maintain your patience. It's hard to do, but don't take it personally. And just in case they get mad at you, don't forget the next hour, the next day, they won't remember. You get to start all over again. Next, please. Here are a couple of things you do want to do. Okay, you know that those repeated questions like, when's the doctor's appointment? When is so-and-so coming? Okay, be ready with answers. You know they're coming. Don't get frustrated. You already asked me. But you can also use a little improv, make a little game out of it. I'm going to tell you a quick story. After I couldn't take mom to movies anymore, she'd be asking, oh, are there any good movies out there? Yes, mom. Titanic, Butch Cassidy, Casablanca. She didn't know any difference. She was getting an answer. It was doing no harm. I'm keeping my sanity. And I had a little laugh inside at mom's expense. So again, don't take it personally. Don't be asking, what do you know my name? Don't worry if they've forgotten your name or the exact relationship. As Maya Angelou says, how do you make them feel? That's the important thing. Next, please. So I provide advice, guidance, resources, and referrals. I work collaboratively with all these ladies and people like them. As a certified senior advisor, I take a holistic approach, a broader perspective. I don't do what they do. I help coordinate it. I am the guide. I help you in the way that I needed back when I was taking care of my mom. So as I like to say, I can support you. I've been there. My information is there. You can scan with your smartphone and it'll take you to my website. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Bill. That was really awesome. And really, our most important point to get across today is make sure you have a support team before the crisis hits. Have a financial planner, have a tax advisor, a health insurance advisor, legal counsel for estate and elder care, long-term care insurance or a plan, a senior living advisor, even a senior real estate specialist, and don't forget to support the caregiver in your life. Ideally, they'll communicate well together, your team, to make sure that you're holistically covered. So thank you again for the opportunity to share this information with you. We will be sending out a resource packet to the email that you used to register for the webinar. And if you'd like to set up any free follow-up appointments, just reach out. And then now we're going to stop recording and open up the microphones for the Q&A portion of our webinar.